Hello and welcome to KSPN TV Sports Center. My name is Sammy Fawn alongside Judo Kanyas, and we're here representing the Conejo Oaks Broadcasting Station, and we will be taking you through this past week, how the Oaks are doing, what's to expect this upcoming week for the Oaks, and we'll also talk about the standings between the California Collegiate League South and the CCL North. Now, this past week was certainly very eventful for the Conejo Oaks. Jude, they played 3 out of their 5 games on the road. They really played 4 games outside of George Sparky Anderson Field, but certainly a lot of traveling, the most that the Oaks had seen this weekend. The Oaks, they really rose to the challenge this week. The Oaks, they dropped their first 3 road games this season, and that third one was certainly an upsetting loss. It was an 8-7 walk-off loss 2 Sundays ago to the MLB Academy Barons, and at that point, we didn't really know if the Oaks could break this road loss curse, but the Oaks, they really came out strong this weekend, took care of business on the road.
Yeah, it was certainly important to be able to respond after, like you mentioned, the three first road losses of the season. And, they did it in a variety of ways to catch those road wins, but also, go on a 4-game winning streak in this week.
Yes, most certainly. And that win column started back on Tuesday, June 24th. The Oaks picked up their first road win. It was against the Arroyo Seco Saints at Jackie Robinson Memorial Field. It was a 4-1 win versus the Saints. And we saw Charlie Decker throw 5 innings of 1-run ball that game. Very impressive. The best performance we've seen from him. And we also saw a 2-run blast from Jacob Galloway, another Oak to join the home run party this season. Following day, the Arroyo Seco Saints came out to George Sparky Anderson Field as the Oaks hosted the Saints in what was a 10-7 win for Conejo. And, you saw the Oaks break out with 3 runs in that first inning. It was Gabe Howard who got the start for the Oaks, pitched first 3 innings scoreless, and a good way to extend the Oaks' winning streak. And to follow that, this past Friday, the Oaks played their 5th road game of the season and picked up their second win on the road. It was a 4-1 win versus the Santa Barbara Foresters at Eddie Matthews Field at Santa Barbara High School. And the Santa Barbara Foresters currently the 1 seed in the CCL South. So it was certainly a significant win for the Oaks. They've played 3 games against the Foresters now and have taken 2 of them. Following day, this past Saturday, the Oaks hosted as the home team the Orange County Riptide. Now, they played at Ventura College because there were various events going on at Cal Lutheran, including George Sparky Anderson Field, but it was a very exciting 7-6 win for the Oaks in walk-off fashion that game. It was a tie game at 4 heading into extra innings, and then it just went back and forth. You saw the Riptide score a run in the top of the 10th, and then the Oaks responded by tying the game. And one thing about those extra innings, it looked like it was over in that 10th inning when you saw Jax Jimenez get picked off, but then it followed with the Tommy Kenlinger walk and then the game tying RBI single by Danuitz to tie the game at 5 at the time. And then the Riptide scored a run in the top of the 11th, and then the Oaks scored 2 of their own, and it all ended on a walk-off wild pitch of all endings. And, certainly a brutal way for the Riptide to lose that game. But the Riptide responded big yesterday with an 11-3 brutal win over the Conejo Oaks. Now, this is the second identical type of game that we have seen at Great Park in Irvine, where the Orange County Riptide hosted the Conejo Oaks. This was the third time these two teams had played each other, but we definitely experienced a sense of deja vu with the Oaks striking first with a few runs, and then, the Riptide down 3-1, scoring 5 runs in the bottom of the 5th. And it was the same sequence as the week before, where the Riptide scored 5 in the 5th and 5 in the 6th. And they really never looked back after taking that lead. But, certainly an eventful week. And, considering, Jude, that they won the first 4 games, it was certainly a tough way to go out for the Oaks in that last game.
It was. And talking to players after the game, I think they said it was just it's a tough place to play with all the antics. You have, the middle of the inning kind of events go on and the Jumbotron and all the sound. And it is one of those tougher ballparks compared to just everything that goes on beyond just the game itself. But looking at this week, I think the Oaks really responded well. Like we talked about at the top of this segment, just we knew that this was going to be an important week, just knowing how many road games they had, which is the most road games they will have in a week in this whole entire season. So to be able to show that they don't just win at George Sparky Anderson Field, but they can also go on the road and win. And in those first four wins, they didn't ever trail. They always had a lead. And I think that's kind of where we saw in the Riptide game that they lost on Sunday. Like you mentioned, Sammy, it was that fifth and the sixth inning. It was 5 runs back to back. And, it was tough for the Oaks to respond. So we've seen them in situations where they have been able to bounce back. But really, when they're starting pitching, guys like Gabe Howard, Charlie Decker, Cade Beloyan, Alex Umlin, two of those guys being Oregon pitchers who just came in recently, when they're able to come in and start off on a strong way. And to be honest, Sammy, we saw that against the Riptide on Sunday, right? Like, it was Cody Carson who came in the first 4 innings. He didn't have, the strikeout numbers that you probably are expecting, but he came in, retired the sides like multiple times. But yeah, I think it puts a tough, taste in your mouth after a strong week that they had in week 4.
Certainly does. A lot of momentum and being beat like that. When we move on to the standings, we'll start with the southern section standings of the California Collegiate League. The Santa Barbara Foresters currently in first place, a 13-4 record. The Oaks will host the Foresters tomorrow for a 4 p.m. game at George Sparky Anderson Field, and the Oaks follow right behind the Foresters in second place, a 12-6 record, and they jumped out in front of the Arroyo Seco Saints, who are in third place this week, a 10-6 record. Their win, or their succession over the Saints in second place, really came after their couple of victories earlier in this week against the Saints. And right behind the Arroyo Seco Saints, the Orange County Riptide, 9-3. Of course, last night's game was certainly not representative of where the Oaks and Saints, or where the Oaks and Riptide are in comparison to each other necessarily, but a lot of still just halfway into the season, a lot of development to see, a lot of more progress to be made. Well, in fifth place is the MLB Academy Barons, a 7-10 record against in the California Collegiate League, and right behind them we've got the affiliates, the San Diego Waves, 2-4 on the season so far. The Oaks will host the Waves, play them for the first time this upcoming week, and they're followed by the San Diego Bombers in seventh place, a 2-7 record. And right behind them, Philippines Baseball Group, a 1-10 record. They've got a lot of work to turn around, a lot of progress to make, but certainly a very competitive week for the Oaks to take on this season. And now, Jude, you want to take us through the northern section standings?
Yeah, let's get to it. Number 1 is the Walnut Creek Crawdads, who right now are 13-6. They're leading the north section. It's the Alameda Merchants at 10-5, just one game behind the Crawdads. And at third, you have the Sonoma Stompers with 14 wins, is the most in that section, but they do have 9 losses on the season, puts them also one game back from first place. And then San Luis Obispo Blues sitting at 9-11. The Menlo Park Legends at 8-11. And the San Francisco Seagulls just having a tough season at 5-17 with 9.5 games back. So that is your northern section, the California Collegiate League. As we move on to the schedule for the Conejo Oaks this week, they will open up the month of July, where they will play the Santa Barbara Foresters on July 1st at 4 p.m. at George Sparky Anderson Field. And it's a bunch of homestand for the Conejo Oaks here in week 5 as we get things started. On Wednesday, July 2nd, they'll play the San Diego Bombers. For just the second time this season, we saw them in a 10-4 defeat, or a 10-4 victory, I should say, for the Oaks back at the start of the season. That game will also be 4 p.m. at George Sparky Anderson Field. And then we have a 4th of July special as the Philippines national group will come to George Sparky Anderson Field for a 4 p.m. first pitch game. And then that continues into a Saturday, July 5th game versus San Diego Waves at 4 p.m. And then in matinee on Sunday at July 6th, it's the Philippines national team back at George Sparky Anderson at 1 p.m.
Thank you, Jude. We've got a lot to look forward to this week. Some very competitive baseball in the CCL. The Conejo Oaks facing off to their 5th week of baseball this summer. Well, it's all the time we have for today. On behalf of our spectacular crew, we want to thank you all for tuning in alongside Jude Ocañas. I'm Sammy Fawn, and we will see you all this Tuesday at George Sparky Anderson Field for a 4 p.m. game against the Santa Barbara Foresters. Take care, everyone.